Welcome to this week's disaster discussion, where we'll take a look at Hurricane Melissa, specifically from the eyes of past Hurricane Katrina. Recently, Hurricane Melissa made landfall in Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. Before landfall, Melissa reached Category 5 hurricane status with peak winds at 185 miles per hour, making it one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes on record. Given its devastating impact is still unfolding, I want to discuss and learn from a similar event, Hurricane Katrina, which occurred in 2005. So let's start with some history about Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina began as a tropical depression on August 23, 2005, over the southeastern Bahamas, and it quickly intensified, becoming a tropical storm the next day, and on August 25th, it made landfall in southern Florida as a Category 1 hurricane with winds near 80 miles per hour. After crossing Florida, it entered the warm waters of the Gulf of America, where conditions were ideal for rapid intensification. By August 28th, Katrina reached Category 5 status with sustained winds of 175 miles per hour, making it one of the most powerful Atlantic hurricanes at the time ever recorded. It weakened, however, to a Category 3 with sustained winds between 111 to 129 miles per hour before making its second and most destructive landfall along the northern Gulf Coast, mainly impacting Louisiana and Mississippi. So what is a Category 3? According to the National Hurricane Center, a Category 3 event causes major damage to well-built framed homes, to include removal of roof decking and gable ends. In addition, many trees will be snapped or uprooted, blocking numerous roads, and electricity and water will be unavailable for several days to weeks after the storm passes. We have seen with Hurricane Melissa that they had lost electricity for a long time. In fact, the whole area of Jamaica was in basically a total blackout, and cell service was totally lost during this time, which made it very difficult for people to communicate with their family and friends that were not in that general area. As far as Katrina goes, things were made worse by the accompanying storm surge, which reached upwards of 28 feet along parts of the Mississippi coast, causing massive flooding. In addition, as if you could make things worse, the New Orleans levee system failed, resulting in flooding that affected roughly 80% of the city. This is a big city. That's a huge impact. Remember, the average single-story home is only about 14 feet tall. So a storm surge of 28 feet, wow, that just totally covers that average single-story home. And then with the impact of all the flooding that was occurring from the levee breaking, you can imagine how devastating this storm really was. If you witnessed the news during Katrina, you saw people in boats and signaling for help while sitting on the roof of a building. This storm was completely devastating, and people were ill prepared for the impact that it had. They were seeking rescue by whatever means they could, which meant they were traveling by boat, or they were hoping to get rescued, getting high enough above the water to create a signal to alert the rescue teams of their location. Adding to this widespread devastation, there was significant power outages affecting nearly 3 million people, and the area's critical infrastructure was basically destroyed. Tragically, Katrina caused at least 1,392 confirmed deaths and displaced more than 1 million people across the Gulf Coast region. The economic toll exceeded $125 billion at that time, making it the costliest natural disaster in U.S. history. What did we learn? Well, vulnerabilities were definitely exposed. The storm exposed significant issues in infrastructure, especially in New Orleans, where the flood protection system just didn't work. And it highlighted serious issues in the emergency preparedness and response that Katrina hoped would be in place to help them when this huge event occurred. Residents who were unable or unwilling to evacuate, and there was a big problem with this, a lot of people did not evacuate even though evacuation orders were put in place. These individuals faced severe hardships with delayed rescue operations due to the overwhelmed local, state, and federal response systems. And the the federal government faced widespread criticism, with agencies like FEMA receiving huge scrutiny in how they responded to this issue. However, something dear to my heart, many local groups, volunteer organizations, and federal agencies such as the Coast Guard conducted massive rescue efforts under challenging conditions and actually saved a lot of people from the devastation and destruction that was going on. So what was learned? What did we learn from Katrina and how it impacted the communities, and how they would use these lessons to adjust their hazard mitigation assessment? A hazard mitigation assessment is a plan that a community puts in place where they identify potential hazards, they look at resources and outside agencies and how they might manage or prepare for these types of events, and then they discuss what and how to put a response in place. And then they always have a plan in place to look at an event and try to make things better in the future. So let's explore what lessons might have been learned that could be used in this hazard mitigation assessment plan for the areas that were impacted. We'll look at it from 4 different areas: mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Post-Katrina mitigation identified the need to invest in a stronger infrastructure and flood defense system, seeking to reduce the flooding risk. They identified a need to invest in public education and early warning systems, and invest in best outcome evacuation plans and methods of disseminating or identifying these routes to the public. Post-Katrina preparedness is where they put these mitigation concepts into play. So basically, they sought to have better flood defenses, better public education, state-of-the-art early warning systems, and they wanted community awareness of evacuation routes. As far as post-Katrina response concepts, this led to increased coordination among all levels of government and community organizations, hopefully making it so that people could come and respond to a disaster where the left hand and the right hand both know what they're doing, and through these coordinated efforts, they create a better outcome in that response process. Finally, post-Katrina recovery discussions promoted rebuilding smarter and stronger, with a focus on resilience to future disasters. Lessons learned from Katrina had global impact, promoting other communities to evaluate and adjust their hazard mitigation assessment plans. So let's get back to Melissa. While Melissa was meteorologically stronger, Katrina will most likely remain infamous for catastrophic damage that it caused in the US, the Gulf Coast, and other areas. And Katrina's legacy will probably focus on its staggering human and economic toll and lessons learned in disaster readiness and response that could be utilized for potential future events. Melissa most likely benefited from these lessons, given advances in early warning systems and evacuation concepts. But only time's going to tell, however, if the Katrina-generated changes help those impacted by the recent disaster, Hurricane Melissa. So how can this help us? How can this help us as individuals, families, and a community? So let's put out a call to action. What can we learn from today's topic? Perhaps it provides a simple and straightforward call to action. Number 1, if you don't know it, learn to memory your community's alarm system and evacuation routes. If you already know it, be sure to review the alarm systems and evacuation routes on a routine basis at least once a year. Number 2, if you don't have it, create a disaster kit with survival and medical essentials. If you already have one, be sure to review the contents and update them as needed at least once a year. Number 3, if you don't have one, create a disaster plan of action and review it with your family at least once a year. If you have one, be sure to review the plan with all members of the household at least once a year. Being prepared can save lives. It's important. Take the time to do it. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay prepared, and I'll see you next week for another discussion on disaster readiness and global health.